So guys, we did it. We reached a whole 1,000 subscribers. 1k subscribers and still growing. The fact that we reached this number in such a short amount of time is just phenomenal. I'm just amazed. Thank you all so much. Okay, I'll stop using the pyrocynical copy pasta now. But in all seriousness, thanks for letting me reach this point. Considering I have the attention span of a gnat, I assumed I'd post maybe a dozen videos, get bored, and move on with my life. Over 150 videos in, and I'm still here, ranking SRB2 mods for a tiny corner of the internet. I thought long and hard about what I could do to celebrate reaching this point. Specifically, what kind of pain and suffering I would put myself through in the form of a challenge video to commemorate the occasion. I thought about playing the entire game in first person, or perhaps beating it without moving the camera. I even went so far as to think about playing the game as him. But, as I'm sure most of you will have figured out by looking at the gameplay in the background of my videos, you'll have noticed that I'm actually pretty terrible at SRB2, and with the subscriber count ticking up, I realised I'd have to think of something I could reasonably achieve within our lifetimes. So I shamelessly looked in the comments. And there were one or two good ideas, which I put into some posts to let you guys decide what I should do. And then I got a different answer from each poll. Luckily, someone on the Discord server came up with the idea of combining the two, so here we are. Today, I'm going to be playing through SRB2 using a randomizer filled with my 10 favourite mods I've covered over the last year and a half. Will they still be my favourites at the end of the video? Let's find out. To go over the basics, let's discuss how I set this up. You might assume my favourites would be the 10 mods I gave the highest scores to, and that would be logical, but you'd be wrong. Firstly, it has been a long time since I played with some of these mods, so the scores aren't necessarily a perfect indicator of what I think of a mod now. Secondly, I rank some characters I'll be playing as today as an 8 or 9 out of 10, but they came as a part of a mod with one or two other characters I gave less than perfect scores to, and due to the mod having multiple characters I enjoy immensely as a single package, they'll be here today anyway. Because of that, we actually have 13 characters loaded in this randomizer. So who are they? Well, today we'll be seeing Metal Wario 64's Adventure Sonic, Inazuma's Rush characters, which includes Blaze the Cat and Marine the Raccoon, DirkTheHusky's Team Kinetic, which includes DirkTheHusky, Will the Ram, and Veslo the Bee, Surfin's Espio the Chameleon, Ralph Jeremy 65's Gemma the Tarsier Cat, DrStephen's Kiryu Kazuma, Motdspork's Modern Sonic, Chengi's Neo Sonic, Lat Silver the Hedgehog, and finally, Light Dasher's Whisper the Wolf. I hope none of these picks are too much of a hot take. I doubt they are, as I'm aware I have pretty much the most lukewarm taste out there. Also keep in mind that I haven't actually played every single mod ever made for SRB2, so this is only my current top 10 from the mods I've played up until the point of me scripting this video. This also won't be a video where I'm actively reviewing any of these mods, because I know I like them all. And finally, honourable mentions need to go to X Momentum, the OLDCs, and pretty much any map made by Roger van der Wade. If this was a true list of my top 10 mods, these would be on there, but obviously none fit neatly into the format of a randomizer. So, without further ado, let's begin. After a quick read through all the characters' download pages to make sure I haven't forgotten any of their abilities, I started a new save file, selected Sonic and Tails, then immediately opened the console menu and deleted Sonic and Tails, and Knuckles, and Amy, and Fang, and Metal Sonic. It's a little annoying that every time you re-enter the save file running the randomizer mod, you need to go and set all your preferences again, but frankly, I'm just glad I'm even able to save during these runs. If I had to give my number one SRB2 mod, it'd have to be custom save, but I feel that'd be a pretty boring answer. As will always be a case for the shorter and easier levels, nothing particularly interesting happens during Greenflower Mountain Act 1. The most interesting thing that did happen was Blaze floating in the air after switching from Whisper, so it looks like you're able to retain the Endingman ability for at least a little while upon changing characters. A better play would probably try and figure out some form of speedrunning strategy upon learning this, but as previously mentioned, I am not good at this game. Literally nothing exciting happened in Greenflower Mountain Act 2. It was an entirely normal romp through another short and very easy level, and the main reason I'm even mentioning it is for the sake of making sure the final video is as complete as possible. The only real redeeming factor of the jumbled selection of Sonics I played out on my 500 subscriber special randomizer run was the fact that, For the most part, pretty much every Sonic was at least relatively capable against bosses. In all theory, the selection I'm playing as here should be just as competent, if not more so, against the Greenflower Mountain boss, considering we have the main protagonist of the Yakuza series, a sniper, and the 3 Sonics to carry me through that original run. Instead, Kiryu died when he took the place of the AI helper, and the character who actually did most of the work was the 6-year-old raccoon who doesn't even have a damaging jump. No, this is not reflective of my ability, it's all the character's fault. And to top it off, the game crashed upon landing the final blow. That's concerning because it took until Arid Canyon for the game to crash over the original run. Here's to hoping that's a one-off. After restarting the game, I went and redid all the variables, set up all my characters again, and continued more or less from where I left off. I did have to redo the Greenflower Mountain boss, but after quickly breezing through that, it was on to Techno Hill Act 1. I learned just how bad I am at controlling modern Sonic's boost, but past that, the most exciting thing that happened was, ironically enough, finishing the level, because I had overshot a jump with Whisper and collected a special stage coin. I've been playing SRB2 with either a maxed out save file or in record attack mode for so long that I completely forgot about collecting these. I wonder whether I'll be able to collect the Soul Emeralds during this run. Techno Hill Act 2 started off as harmlessly as the rest of the run up until this point, but that all changed when I attempted to run through the Deton path at about the midpoint. I remembered just why I felt Will's ram attack needed some extra work, as it lacked pretty much any ability to turn while using it, until I swapped during it and ended up getting both my character sprites and camera stuck in this god-awful position. I could fix the problem with the sprite by mantling a wall with Adventure Sonic, but for the rest of the level, I was stuck with being unable to move the camera. As this was towards the end of Techno Hill, and because I knew the rest of the path to the end, I was ultimately able to get to the goal without dying, but there were still some mishaps, such as the aura for modern Sonic not lining up correctly. Luckily, or sadly, depending on how much you want me to suffer, the camera was fixed by completing the level, and I was able to fight the Techno Hill boss with full control of my camera. This is once again a boss that you can't really get very creative with fighting, and the character selection I got meant I couldn't really do anything other than jump into the boss repeatedly. That did work perfectly fine, up until I defeated the boss, and the game crashed again. Okay. After restarting the game again, setting the randomizer up again, and then beating the Techno Hill boss again, I got into Deep Sea Act 1. Once again, further proof was added to my theory about characters somewhat maintaining ability from the last character to be swapped in, when I accidentally tried to ground pound using Kiryu, switched to Whisper, then a few seconds later dropped like a stone to the bottom of the ocean. Also, have these few seconds of 2 Espios. I assumed there'd be some form of check to make sure 2 of the same character can't spawn at the same time, but apparently not. Deep Sea Act 2 could generally be summed up as me learning a lot about how the characters I was playing with were able to interact with both one another and the environment around them. For example, I learned Dirk couldn't freeze the rapids that appear at multiple points throughout the level, Silver could use telekinesis on the debris Kiryu's ground pound kicks up, and that marine really didn't want me to make this jump. It also increased the number of clone sightings from 1 to 3, with both Kiryu and Gemma being cloned towards the end of the level. Good times were had by all, apart from Marine, who was brutally crushed halfway through the level. Serves her right for sabotaging me twice earlier. I'm ashamed to admit it, but it took until now for me to realise the Eggman doppelgangers in the Deep Sea boss use a different sprite to the actual Eggman. I've always located him from the electric waves as only the real one sends them out. The most important part of the fight though, was the ending, as my game didn't crash. I write the script for each act immediately after I finish it, so that I don't forget anything I was thinking about with them, so I don't have the foresight to know whether this is a good sign for the future, but the fact that the boss was defeated by a duo or Whisper clones feels like a fitting way to end the zone. Coming into it, I was a little scared when starting Castle Eggman Act 1. After all, it's pretty much universally accepted that it's the first truly difficult level in the game. After a slew of fast, easy-going beginning levels, it's a platforming heavy difficulty spike in the main antagonist's own visage. Therefore, imagine my surprise when, other than a mid-air 360 no-scope from one of the Robin Hood robots, there really wasn't much difficulty running through this. Even the bridge, which gave me so many game overs during the 500 subs randomizer, was a complete cakewalk. I like to think it's because I've improved so much since then, but it's most likely just because the different characters here share pretty much the same momentum, whereas the different Sonics had a habit of completely changing the momentum physics mid-jump, which made over or undershooting platforms very common. Castle Eggman Act 2 was a buttery smooth run that was only heightened in my enjoyment of it by the fact I was playing it entirely using unofficial fan-made mods. The fact that I'm able to enjoy a game to this extent while playing with characters who have no real official hours put into them is great, and to this point, there still hasn't really been a character I've dreaded turning into halfway through a level, which is in complete stark contrast to the previous randomizer run, where I was terrified of turning into about half the characters contained there. However, this, ironically enough, started to worry me. Clearly both my skills and the average quality of the characters have improved since that first run, to the point where I still haven't died yet. So what if nothing happens in this run that really justifies me making an entire video on it? No one wants to watch a challenge video where the creator basically says, yeah, this was great, I'd recommend it to anyone. And considering nothing interesting happened in this act, so I'm having to ramble on about unrelated things doesn't bode well for future levels. Then again, pretty much all my reviews make the exact same point about characters I'm usually too positive about, so clearly you guys enjoy me waffling about nothing. The Castle Eggman boss is tricky at the best of times, so even with a cast of characters well suited to boss fights, this was the level that first made me lose a life. My tips for this boss? Don't get impatient, so don't try and jump over the spike bolt in the first phase or make speed jumps in the second, and don't use so many attacks while you're in the cage. All it'll do is cause you to be crushed when the cage sinks back down after being hit. I had this fun little visual glitch where Will's propeller jump particle effect stayed active after he swapped out, leading to it looking like the characters were charging up some anime ability, and I got to practically skip the second phase by using Whisper. Spike balls mean nothing when your opponent decides to whip out the 50 cal sniper rifle instead. And no crashes after his defeat. I think we're through the worst of the technical difficulties. Arid Canyon Act 1 reminded me why I hate these rope things. They didn't even do anything particularly annoying this time as I was running through, but I get overly scared every time I touch one because there's a roughly 60% chance it'll screw me over when I jump off. In events that actually did happen, I skipped most of the difficult platforming sections when Espio came in at a convenient time, then skipped the rope section at the end using Silver. I then died after hitting a pillar and plummeting into the abyss. But hey, I was able to skip it again immediately afterwards and actually made the final jump. Although Whisper did do whatever this is for a while. Arid Canyon Act 2 was a scuffed level, to say the least, as I started to actually take advantage of the fact that I'm actually playing using a randomizer. There were points I thought I had softlocked myself. I got the Whirl Tornado glitch again, although it stopped when I switched back to Whirl again. Neosonic stood ramrod straight in a minecart. Looking at some of my other footage, this is actually pretty normal, but with Neosonic being so tall, it looks pretty odd. But it all came to a head when I got to the final minecart section and just didn't die after hitting an explosive barrel. I think it was something to do with how I was playing as Modern Sonic, who despawned the minecart and instead grinds directly on the rail, but rather than accept my fate, I decided to wait it out until I got a character who could fly me to the goal. Ultimately, Silver rotated through, and it was just a quick cycle boost to the end. I was really dreading the Arid Canyon boss. Not really because I thought the characters I picked were unable to fight him, but just because I really hate this boss in standard gameplay. I think Fang's hard to pin down and hit, and I think his attacks can be frustrating to avoid. Not to mention how it's essentially time locked to hit him stopping his bounces and instead attacking you. I got through the first phase easily enough, although Modern Sonic during a homing attack on Fang then uncurling before I reached him didn't help, but Whisper carried me through the second phase pretty quickly. Much like the previous boss, Fang's pop gun didn't help him against someone carrying an M107 anti-material sniper rifle firing 50 caliber rounds with an effective range of 1800 meters. Crashing the game after being defeated was very effective against me though. I'm not mad SRB2, I just thought we had agreed to stop doing this, okay? So for the third time so far, I restarted the game, set my characters up again, and fought a boss I had already defeated for a second time. If this happens during the Metal Sonic fight, I might actually start crying. But anyway, onwards to Red Volcano Zone. This used to be my least favourite zone in the game, but because of how much I've played it since then, I've really gotten quite used to it. And with a cast of characters with great air control, including someone who's at least partially immune to lava, this should have been a cakewalk. It should have been, but I was playing terribly, running into enemies left and right, missing jumps and screwing myself over. It didn't help that Blaze never actually appeared at a point where she would have been useful. But even if the level didn't go entirely to plan, and I did lose another life, Red Volcano is ultimately a single act zone, so after running into Eggman's rocket, it's on to Ed Rock Zone. And very quickly into Egg Rock Zone Act 1, I realised something. Or rather, I remembered something. Egg Rock Zone is awful. Every obstacle is seemingly completely randomised to make sure you can't just learn it. Every enemy is placed in a way to make sure getting hit by it will cause you to careen into some bottomless pit, and even the monitors will kill you. After getting so far into the game, I managed to get a game over twice in this single act, and many of the deaths were done in ways that made me seem like I'd barely started playing. Whether that's hitting an item monitor only for gravity to flip and cause it to crush me, to running headfirst into a wall during this crusher section, to suffocating after missing a jump in the final space section, it was all going wrong. It was clear that all of the good characters in the world can't do anything if you keep making missed jumps or attacking enemies in the middle of the attack animations, and I was mostly just glad by the end for it all to be over. Egg Rock Zone Act 2 was a little better than Act 1. It's a pretty backhanded compliment to myself, considering my gameplay in that first act wasn't exactly a high bar to clear, but I only got the one game over this time. It was right at the end as well, when Whisper decided it was a good time to use the Cube Wisp-On. This is what I meant by it being finicky when trying to use the Spike or Cube Wisp-On, as they are nearly identical commands. What makes it even more tragic is that after having this game over, I didn't die once on the way back to this point, even if I did die 2 or 3 times afterwards. Egg Rock is absolutely the worst zone in this game. Black Core Act 1 is an act I've pretty much exclusively played using characters that I know I can use to avoid some of the platforming sections in this level, as doing them on a time limit is something I'm not exactly great at. Therefore, when Neosonic is extremely zealous with appearing at any opportunity where I'm about to use another character to skip a section of the race, that quickly got pretty annoying. In general, I was still playing really poorly, missing jumps, and generally taking incorrect routes through the levels, which meant I was dying a lot. I also learned a few other things about the characters, such as how I was continually underestimating how tall Whisper actually is, as seen with how I kept running into lasers I assumed I would fit under, and when I actually ended the level as Adventure Sonic, we got to see the whole alternate camera thing he's got during his ending animations. He's appeared so infrequently during this run that I genuinely forgot that this was something he did. Black Core Act 2 is probably tied with the Arid Canyon boss for my least favourite boss fight in the entire game. I feel that it's almost impossible to actually fight Metal Sonic without just damage boosting through his projectiles because of how small the arena is, and when it actually is your turn to attack him, he's incredibly inconsistent with what will cause him to go flying back. None of the characters I was playing as during the first phase had particularly useful abilities, because homing attacks have a habit of causing you to fly off the edge, and other attacks are mostly useless, but the extreme aerial mobility this cast has was incredibly useful during the second phase. Kiryu, Silver, Dirk, Whirl, Blaze, Vessler, Whisper and Marine all have abilities that allow you to stay in the air for an extended period of time, so it was mostly just a matter of waiting for Metal Sonic to tire himself out and try to get him to open himself up for an attack. And with him dead, in a considerably shorter span of time than the first randomizer run, we have just one more level to go. And what a fight it was. Okay, so it wasn't a particularly special fight. I did get hit a lot, and the whole euphoria of defeating Eggman was somewhat dampened by having to wait for the fight to despawn because I had run out of rings. But I did defeat him on the first attempt. The myriad of offensive abilities this set of characters has were significantly more useful for this fight than the last, what with the arena being much bigger and not having the whole retreating when getting too close gimmick Metal Sonic has. And with the credits rolling, the theme blasting and the run over, I could look back at how the run was as a whole. In general, playing with a set where I like every character was significantly more fun on my end than playing with a set where only about half are even really functional, like the set of Sonics I was playing as in the 500 subs run. There were much fewer moments where I was thinking to myself, when will this all be over, after dying immediately after starting a level? Yes, I am referring to this absolute rat of a character, but I did find some things I think could be improved on that I perhaps didn't mention in my original reviews of these characters. So, here's a very quick list. 1. Silver's cycle boost has a problem with going up constantly when playing on controller. 2. Whisper feels a little too tall, probably because a hitbox includes a ponytail when it probably shouldn't. 3. I don't see any reason Whirl and Vessel's jumps shouldn't be damaging, as neither have any way to deal damage in air. 4. Dirk's Ice Trail ability is really finicky, and often just doesn't work when triggered. 5. Adventure Sonic and Espio are perfect, don't seem to think about them. And that concludes our time here. With the completion of Black Core Act 3, we ended our run with 1 Chaos Emerald, which had been collected completely by accident, and no Soul Emeralds, because that would have required me to be good at the game and defeat bosses without being damaged. This came at the cost of 4 separate game overs, 3 in Egg Rock and 1 in Black Core that I didn't capture on video. And throughout the run, we experienced 3 separate crashes, all after defeating a boss. Overall, not an awful run, and I've certainly improved since hitting 500 subscribers, but it's clear that good characters can only somewhat make up for a general lack of skill. And with that completed, I would once again like to thank you all for letting me reach 1000 subscribers. I still don't know what's actually attracting you all here, but whatever it is, let's hope that the channel continues to grow in the future. In terms of future content, you can obviously expect more SLB too, but I generally think I settled back into a content making groove that I'd fallen out of for a few months. One project I definitely want to work on is an Iceberg video for Control or Alan Wake, because I feel that's some long form content that I'd have a bit more motivation to make, and would probably be a little more engaging than what I've been occasionally making for Remedy content in the past. If you, for some unexplainable reason, happen to have a link for one, as I can't find any on the internet, please link it in the comment section below. Also, if you have a Sonic fan game that you think would work on a low power, low spec, general office laptop, then feel free to join the Discord server, which I'll have a link to in the description. It's not great. At the time of scripting this, I've only just added stickers and emojis, but you can feel free to talk about any of the topics I cover on the channel, give me some advice on making the videos better, send me a link to any mods or fan games you want me to cover, or just berate me for making a mistake in the newest video. It happens. Once again, thank you all so much, I hope you enjoyed the video, and ciao.